Baruchim Habayim. Welcome to Kew Garden Synagogue, where tonight Chazaq is honored to host a night of Chizuk, a night of inspiration with world-renowned lecturer Rabbi Dovid Goldwasser Shlita, B'Shus Tamar Da'aser of Ari Sakalov, who we're going to hear momentarily from. It's a big honor to be over here. Baruch Hashem, the Kew Gardens community is very near and dear to my heart. I have the zchut, the merit to go to yeshiva over here, yeshiva Tiferes Moshe. My sons are here, my daughters are here, Beis Yaakov, and a lot of chaverim were here, Rabbi Aaron, and many others that Baruch Hashem we know, and very near and dear to our heart. A very special shout out and thank you to my dear chaver Rabbi Daniel Pollack Shlita for always being involved with Kol Tzarech Yitzibur Be'emunah. He deserves a round of applause, but I meant he does so much good. I don't know, he does everything, but he does a lot. Hashem should bless you. Rabbi Gedalia Binkwitz Shlita, the president of the shul, does so much for Klal Yisrael, always smiling, and we appreciate it very, very, very much. Just a quick word. A round of applause to Rabbi Gedalia as well. He deserves it, definitely. Just a quick word about the work of Chazaq. The Divrei Torah will be left for the Rabbanim Shlita. As we all know, there's thousands of Jewish kids in our backyard that unfortunately do not have Jewish education, and we're on a mission. No child should be left behind. Every single Jewish child should get a Jewish education. Deserves a Jewish education. I remember, it was just like yesterday, we had Rabbi Sakalov and the Rebbitzin. They hosted an event in support of Chazaq, and Rabbi Tannenbaum happened to be the speaker. And it was such a chizuk, such inspiration to see so many members of the community coming and showing support. And we just wanted to have a night of gratitude, appreciation to the community for all that you've done and continue doing on behalf of the organization to save these kids. Baruch Hashem, over 1,300 kids in the last few years alone have been transferred from public schools to yeshiva, Baruch Hashem. But we cannot be satisfied. We have thousands of more kids. We have after-school programs, Sunday school programs, Teens Division programs that give them a Jewish education, a Tam of Torah. And Baruch Hashem, you see the payers, you see the fruits of all your support, Baruch Hashem. From families, going in the right ways, the yeshivas, Baruch Hashem, are filled, Baruch Hashem, Chazdei Hashem. And we just wanted to say thank you. And it's a big honor, a big zchus for me to call upon the Mar Da'aser, a very dear friend, a man that does so much for Klal Yisrael, Rav Ari Sakalov Shlita.
Thank you very much. I believe this evening's billed a night of Chizuk. So I'm really surprised by that title. The implication is tonight's a night of Chizuk. But anyone who knows Chazaq understands that every night is a night of Chizuk. This night is not different than any other night. Chazaq is all over the place. There are shiurim all over, so many communities, so many batei knesios that they are arranging. They reach out to adults, they reach out to children. You heard the effort in providing Jewish education for every child. Every child deserves a Jewish education. Rabbi Taitz, Pinchas Taitz, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, used to speak about the Bill of Rights of every Jewish child. And that Bill of Rights of every Jewish child states that every Jewish child is entitled to a Jewish education, regardless of what anybody says or anyone does, but that's the Bill of Rights, the Jewish Bill of Rights. So tonight is not a night of chizuk. Every night is a night of chizuk. And I know Yaniv goes back a long time. And Yaniv has grown up and he's dedicated his life, literally, leiv nefesh, heart and soul, to the Jewish people, to Klal Yisrael. He really cares. You can hear it when he speaks, the passion that is felt by the way he speaks. It's very, very, very special. And so I think that it wouldn't be a bad idea, since we've already been giving rounds of applause, that we should give a round of applause to Rabbi Yaniv for everything he does. We know that in last week's parsha, so the Torah records Matan Torah. Kadosh Baruch Hu giving the Torah to Kol Yisrael, and immediately preceding Matan Torah, so the Rebbeinu Shalom speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu, who in turn relays those messages to Klal Yisrael. At the very beginning, in Rosh Chodesh Sivan, so he speaks to Moshe, and he tells Moshe the following to say to Klal Yisrael: V'eso eschem al kanfei nesharim, v'avi eschem Eloi. I carried you on the wings of eagles, and I brought you close to me. If you look in the Torah, describes Hashem carrying the Jews on the wings of eagles. What does he mean? I carried you on the wings of eagles. So Motzei Shabbos I explained that the Slon of Rebbe, Zecher Tzaddik Kadosh Levracha, in his beautiful Sefer Nesivos Shalom, says the most uplifting insight. The Rebbe says, Kadosh Baruch Hu did lift the Jewish people on the wings of eagles. Do you know when he did it? When they were down in the dumps. When they were in Mitzrayim. When they found themselves on the lowest spiritual level. Well, almost the lowest spiritual level they could have reached. The 49th level of Tumah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to Moshe and he says to Moshe, I want you to take my children out of Mitzrayim and tell them, who are they to me? B'ni B'chorei Yisrael. My son. You're my children. You're my eldest children. They weren't acting like his children. The farthest from acting like children. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling them that, my dear children, you don't know who you are. If you're acting in ways that are not appropriate, it's not because you are inappropriate. You've been influenced. You've had many challenges. But who are you? No matter what, you are B'ni B'chorei Yisrael. And he lifted them up. He made them believe in themselves, that they indeed are special. And when a child, a person, begins to appreciate the uniqueness and the incredible koach that lies within each and every one of us, then no challenge is insurmountable. And you realize that you can do almost anything. That was the message that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had for them. They looked at themselves, they didn't see B'ni B'chorei Yisrael. They saw on the 49th level of Tumah, their Hovdi Avodah Zarah, just like the Egyptians. That's what Paro saw. Hashem says to Paro, oh no, not my children. They're special. It's B'ni B'chorei Yisrael. He lifted them on the wings of eagles. Made it possible for them to soar and to understand who they are. I'm a Jew. I'm a Yid. I have Torah. I know I'm special. I can rise above everything. He gave them hope. That's how he did it. And that's what he reminded them of before giving them the Torah. So not everybody has the talent and the ability to lift people on the wings of eagles. But there are certain members of Klal Yisrael, certain Rabbanim, certain Oskei B'Tzorchei Tzibur, who have such a love for Klal Yisrael and have been given a talent and have decided to devote those talents to Klal Yisrael, to the Ribono Shel Olam. They lift people on the wings of eagles. Rabbi Dovid Goldwasser Shlita, who we are honored to have this evening, is such a man. When you listen to him, You listen to the way in which he speaks to us. You see the passion. You see the love. You're being lifted. We're all being lifted on the wings of eagles. Whenever he speaks, I've watched him. I haven't been in all the audiences, but I've had the opportunity to watch him. And you feel he's talking to you and he's addressing the issues that are on your mind. And you're being lifted when we have doubts about ourselves. That's what he's done with so many people. He's reached out through his books, through his speeches, through his shiurim, and through personal contact with so many young people that have been lost. He's lifted them up. Such a schus. It's such a tremendous thing. So we are fortunate this evening to have Rabbi Goldwasser here, and I have no doubt that when we leave this room this evening, we will be flying high on the wings of eagles. That's what's going to happen. So it's my honor to introduce to all of you Rabbi Dovid Goldwasser.
Good evening, Baruchim Aboim B'Shem Hashem, to the Morad Asra Shlita, Rav Sokolov. I cannot tell you, I'm humbled by his great words. He should continue to lead the Kehillah together, the Mishpacha, Mechayel Al-Choyel, La'orech Yomim Tovim. I would also like to just greet the fellow Rabbanim who are here this evening. It's a great kavod, and the Rebbitzins and everybody, all good dear friends that are gathered tonight. I would like to just begin with a very short idea about Chazaq in this community. In Yigdal, we say, Gomel ish chesed kemifaloi. Gomel ish chesed kemifaloi. Nosein l'rosh hara kerishato. That they give the ish chesed, the person that does chesed, the man, the woman that does chesed, can follow according to what they accomplished. Nosen l'rosh hara, to the person who's evil, kirishato. Whatever that person did that's evil, that person will also get their, let us say, reward or punishment. The Eitz Avos says a very interesting commentary. What does it mean, kimi follow? When you do something, so there are certain things you do, one incident, and that's it. You do one maisa, that was it, in for the evening. There are other things that when you do one little maisa, it will continue to yield you interest in peiros for a long, long time to come. In helping Chazaq, it is a tremendous organization that is Omed Berumo Shalom. It stands at the height of the world. All they do. When we help Chazaq, it's an interesting thing. It's not only for tonight, it's for next week, it's for the kids in public school, it's for the J group, it's for the teens that gather together, it's for the next year where Rabbi, the indefatigable leader in Manig, will find a new community that's yet untouched and doesn't have shurim, and he'll make them there. It continues to go and grow and grow. So for all that you do, and the community does so much, it is such a wonderful, wonderful community. Mika Amcha Yisrael Goyachad Ba'aretz. The fact that you support and give over the chizuk to Chazaq, it should be kamifalo for everybody. It should continue to accrue zechuyos and brachos and yeshuos and refuos, whatever the community wants, whatever you need. You should have tremendous success just in the schus of what you do, and especially what you do for Chazaq. I want to start this evening about dreams, but nobody get tired. We're going to talk a little bit about the Olam HaChalomos, right? So we know it says, B'chalom adaber bo, in a dream I will speak to you. Sometimes the Navi had a message that was given in the dream. Yaakov Avinu, Yosef HaTzadik had all of the dreams. All of those that dreamed throughout the Tanakh. Hashem gave to them a specific message, an indication, a horah, an instruction of something that they were supposed to do, some way that they were supposed to go. Interesting, in the Torah, it does say in the Talmud, Perek Shishi, in Brachos, in the Gemara, it talks about all the meanings of dreams. If a person has such a dream, what is the meaning? I'm called a lot of times, I had this dream, what does it mean? Do I have to be concerned, chas v'sholom? Is it a good dream? All the different types of dreams, and we always say that it's good. Chalomos shav yidaberu. If a person has a dream and they got a little upset about it, should wake up and say, Chalomos shav yidaberu. Dreams speak falsehood. Say it 3 times, dreams speak falsehood. However, it does say, Im nafsho aguma alav. Shulchan Aruch says that what happens, a person, they had a dream and they got a little upset. We don't know. Talmud says you could have a dream and you could think, oh, it's not such a good dream, but really it's a great dream. Or you could have a dream and you could think, wow, it's a really great dream. May not be the greatest dream. The only thing is that whenever a person has a dream, they should be careful not to say it over, only to a person that is a chacham, only to a person that is very knowledgeable, someone who they trust implicitly. Because the chalom can go after the person that interprets the dream. If a person gives a good interpretation, it will be good. If chas v'sholom they give a negative interpretation, could turn out that way. That is why everybody was afraid to give the interpretation to Paro, Melech Mitzrayim. He had the dream, remember about the 7 and the 7? So everybody was afraid to give him an interpretation. They thought, if he doesn't like the interpretation, he'll kill them. And the truth is, a person gives over a bad interpretation isn't your best friend. We always try to interpret it always for good. And there's sometimes that it's a little bit difficult. But the Michtam Eliyahu says the only dream that you have to worry about is if you're 1,000% truthful. If you're always truthful in everything that you do, then your dreams could come true. If sometimes you say a little sheker lavan, a little white lie, if sometimes you're not 1,000% true about something, then a person should not worry about it at all. And this is the general idea. I will tell you a dream that I had that wound up to be something that was very, very special. I was, one night, it was almost dawn, and I fell into a very deep sleep, and I had a dream. I had a dream, normal. I'm in the car, passenger side, and there's a person that I know, Rabbi Eliezer, he's driving the car. I don't know, I'm watching him, and it seems to be that he's falling asleep. I said, Rabbi Eliezer! And he gets up and he's driving. But you know, if you're tired, so then he's going to sleep another time. And I got very upset. I said, Rabbi Eliezer! I said, please, wake up, wake up, wake up! I was screaming. All of a sudden, the dream stopped. I woke up.
Set the alarm for
that was the entire incident that happened. Nothing else. Nothing else.
Set the alarm for when?
I go. Is there something going on in it? I go, and I went the next morning to the minyan. I went the next morning to the minyan, And when I go to the minyan, there was something unbelievable that happened. All of a sudden, Rebbe Eliezer, the man from the dream, ran in. Rav, do I have to bench Gomel? Do I have to say the special bracha from being saved? I was falling asleep at the wheel on the Belt Parkway because I was very tired. And I heard your voice screaming, Eliezer, wake up, wake up. I woke up, and at the last moment, I was able to avoid hitting a car, and I guided the car into the guardrail in the center. Bachalom, adaber bo. You can't tell. Sometimes something could happen in a dream that is chutz miderech hateva, that is outside of teva. It is outside of nature that we can't understand. We'll talk a little bit more about it. What I'd like to zero in on tonight is something phenomenal, a dream that was dreamt by Nebuchadnezzar, the Melech, Bavel, the king. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. The interesting idea is that a lot of dreams, so a person wakes up, I had a dream, and I dreamt that you lent me $1 million. You want to take care of that now? That doesn't have to mean anything. But a dream of a melech, a dream of a king, could have implications, could have repercussions for the entire country, maybe even for the cloud. So the dream of Nebuchadnezzar is considered to be a very important dream. Also, just two things. If a person is melumad benisim, if you are used to very different miracles happening, Baba Sali, in the house of the great Rav Abuchatzera, miracles happen. It wasn't such an odd occurrence. If all of a sudden we'd be over here and a great miracle would happen, something supernatural in the room, I think we may get afraid. We may be a little bit nervous about what's happening. But melumad benisim is that we realize that it is possible. A miracle could happen. A miracle that we don't even realize. It is very possible that something could happen. We may even be privileged to be able to see it. After all, every day in our davening we say, on the miracles that Hashem does for us every day. Miracles, things that are outside of nature that we don't understand. It's an unbelievable thing. Okay, what happened was the following. Nebuchadnezzar goes to sleep one night and he has a dream. He has a dream and he's not used to anything. He's not used to any supernatural occurrence. He's not used to any kind of a message being given over in a dream, and he gets very upset. He is so nervous that he wakes up and he cannot shake it. In the Talmud and also in the Mishnah Brura, it says, what kind of a dream does a person have to try to take care of? Nafsha aguma alav. They're upset about it. They can't shake it. Usually you wake up, so for the first few minutes you think about it, then the dream dissipates into thin air and it's gone. But the dream that a person continues to dream, that's a dream. Ma'aseh shahaya. A mother called me up. A mother and a daughter both had the same dream. Nora v'ayom. What happened? The daughter is engaged. They're making the vort, the engagement party, in Miami, Florida, where the family is from originally and the family of the chassan. Beautiful. They are to fly that day, that morning, they are to fly to Miami, the Kala and her mother. However, the night before, they have a chalom. The chalom is that something will happen to the plane. Shomu shamayim. The mother, as they say, the heart was in her hands, nafshi b'chapi, right? The mother says, Yilamdenu Rabbeinu. We both had the same dream. Va'ali shanot hachalom. The fact that the dream is repeated. Should we go or we shouldn't go? What should we do? A sheila chamura. That's a very big shaila. What should happen? Now, there are several ways of dissipating a dream, as we all know. One, Berchas Kohanim, that a person can say the special insert during Berchas Kohanim, when the Kohanim bless us. The second way is, the person could fast. Tainus Chalom. The next day a person fasts, and that also dissipates the dream. The Talmud says, it's like you take a match, and you have flax, and you move the match towards the flax, and the flax flees, it runs away. It is repelled from fire. So too, a dream will be dissipated, will become bottled, annulled through fasting. Then there's a third way. The third way is Hatovas Chalom. Hatovas Chalom is when the person comes in, there are three people. The person who's the Cholem, the person says, I dreamt a dream. They don't say what it is. And then the three, acting as sort of a basin, will tell them, you saw a good dream, you saw a good dream, Chamatov Chazita, you saw only a good dream, and they say all the positive psukim, and the person leaves and everything is okay. So we opted for the third. Why? Interesting. Both the mother and the daughter are very scared of flying. Since they are afraid of flying, they have a fear. They once took the course, I forgot the name of it. They once took the course to gain confidence to fly. It didn't help, but they did take the course. So now, the night before, it was possible that they were both upset and nervous. A person sometimes dreams about what they think about during the day. We made Hatovas Chalom. I also gave to them a shliach mitzvah to take down to North Miami, so they would also be shlichei mitzvah, and the whole going was for a mitzvah, that they were going for a simcha. They went, and Baruch Hashem, everything turned out well. The couple was married, b'shah tova mitzlachas. Okay. So there are different ways of dreaming. However, Nebuchadnezzar was very upset because he could not understand it. When a person cannot understand something, it is more scary than something that is like naturally scary, night or whatever. What was it? He dreamt that there was a tree that was very tall, a huge tree. As we all know, Ki ha'adam eitz hasoda, a man is a tree of the field. When he sees the tree, it started to go very, very high up towards Shamayim, a huge, huge tree. It was visible to everybody. It had a lot of the leaves, and it had a lot of fruits and everything in this big tree. And all of the brios, all the creations came under the tree in order to take shade, in order to have shelter from it. Also, the birds came, and it was in the branches, and it was a beautiful, beautiful tree. All of a sudden, as he's watching this tree that is huge, going up to the heavens, and all the brios, all the creations are around it, all of a sudden, a malach comes down. A malach comes. This is from Sefer Daniel, and the malach calls out and says, cut down this tree, cut it down. All of a sudden, they began to chop down the tree. They chopped down its branches. Ki adam eitz hasoda. A person has some connection with the field, not simple. And they began to scatter all the fruit. All the fruit left it. All the foliage came off. The animals all ran away from it. The birds all left from the branches. And Nebuchadnezzar is scared. He cannot even move. The malach said, just leave the roots. Leave the roots inside, and it should be together with those beasts, those chayos, the wild animals of the field. That's who the tree will be together with now. Interesting. Daniel was summoned. Nebuchadnezzar doesn't know what it means, and everybody was afraid to tell him. They were all afraid to tell him what the meaning of this was. Basically, nobody knew, but they called Daniel, and they said, Daniel, tell us, what is it? Nebuchadnezzar wants to know, what does it all mean? Daniel said, it may not be so good. Nebuchadnezzar said, I'm willing to take it no matter what is the explanation. I'm willing to listen. I want you to tell me. Okay, I want you to know, king, that you were the tree. You were the tall tree. Your kingdom grew. You were a real king, an evil king, a king that was vicious, a king that killed people, a king that was ruthless, a king that destroyed, laid siege to the Beis HaMikdash, laid siege to the temple, a king that was beyond our idea of wickedness. However, he was a great king. He was a mighty king. And that king is going to be cut down. That's what he said. You will now have the end of your reign. Why? Because you could not keep Hashem in mind. You thought you were greater than Hashem. Thought he was better. He thought he was higher than Hashem. And therefore, you are now going to be taken down. Not only are you going to be taken down, but you are going to have people rule over you. You will no longer be the ruler. And as we know, that he's going to have to go into exile. Nebuchadnezzar, the tall and mighty king, the king over the entire world, is now going to be taken down completely, and exactly as he was told happened to him. He was going to be sent into the fields. He was going to turn into, later we're going to find out, he actually turned into an animal. He turned into a beast of the field. A person, interesting, we say by Mincha, ki Moisar Adam min behema oyin. A person is a little bit higher than a behema, than an animal. But the commentaries say oyin. What is oyin? No. The ability to say no. A human being makes good decisions. I know what I know what I can't do. I know what's moral, I know what's ethical. I know what's halacha, I know what's anti-halacha. I'll be careful in it. However, the person that does not know how to say no, that's indiscriminate, that will do anything, they live the life of a behemoth achaya. There's a fascinating sefer Kabbalah, the mystical sefer, Chochmas HaPartzuf. Chochmas HaPartzuf means that if you want to know how somebody is, you can't Google them at Shabbos or whatever. You don't have to Google them. Believe me, you don't have to use the internet. You do not have to. For Torah anytime, you can use it, but for anything else, you don't have to. Anyhow, so say you want to know what a person is. So there is a sefer. You have to be a Mekubal. You have to be a great Chacham to use it. But it does say that there is a chachma of knowing one's face. There it is interesting, and it says if a person has a similarity to a behema, to one of the creatures, they may possess the midos, the characteristics of that animal in which they resemble. And it's a fascinating idea, and there is a number of very interesting svarim that talk about a resemblance between people and the behema. One is never allowed to call someone a behema. One chaya adam is posek the halacha. You can't say you're not allowed to, because we are different. We have a tselem Elokim. When a person does not use the image of Hashem, they could lose it. If they disgrace the image of Hashem that they are, the Tselem Elokim, they could lose it. So he was told, you are done. You're going to be a behemoth. You're going to be a beast. Nebuchadnezzar is no dummy. So he asks, tell me, Yilamdenu Rabbeinu, he says to Daniel, how can I get out of it? Give me redemption. Give me a way to get out. Give me tshuva. Certainly, there's got to be something that I can do to get out of it. Tell me what I can do. Daniel says to him, B'tzidka pruk. With righteousness, with charity, with chesed, with kindness, you can get out. What I tell you to do, Nebuchadnezzar, help the poor. You want to get out of it? You want to get free from the punishment? Help the poor. What should you do? Set up a house, hachnosas orchim, to welcome in the strangers, to give people that need food, to give people that need drink, to give people that need shelter, a place to stay. If you will do this, it will be considered your kapara. You will be atoned and you will not have to worry about it. He went immediately. Nebuchadnezzar wants to get out of this. So what did he do? He immediately set up the house. There were poor people in Klal Yisrael. Poor people, we don't even imagine what poor people are. In our Bazman Hazeh, first of all, Bizmanenu, we got a lot of chesed organizations that help, that give food and give drink. All the organizations, there's so many, they're unbelievable, each and every one. Giving food to the poor, giving food for Shabbos, Tomchei Shabbos, and chickens for Shabbos, and must be thousands different places in Eretz Yisrael. It's just an amazing thing. It's amazing. We give with an open hand, with an open heart. So there is very interesting also. Rav Steinman says, for a refuah, for a person in need of a refuah shalema to heal, to be machnes orach, to have guests and to bring them in for the poor, to help them or anybody that needs it, it is a very big skula for refuah, Rav Steinman said. Anything, or just to give food for people that need to have food, for people that are hungry, for people that need to drink. In the old days, people were very poor. They used to have a place, they have a big sign, you daven in the morning, Malbish Harumim. They give clothes to those that don't have. They used to come in, and they had a big sign, Malbish Harumim, and people used to come in, and they would take clothing, they would take a coat, or whatever it was, and they got it. But even Bazman Hazeh, a very interesting thing. I had a guy, and he said, Rebbe, I would like to donate clothing. Clothing, anybody that needs, I would like to pay. There's a store nearby. I would like to pay the clothing for them. I said, specifically clothing? Yes. Anything else? No, clothing. And he was very direct. He said, I don't care what it costs. I don't care where it is. I want to donate clothing. I said, anything in particular? Like, is it a tikkun or pi Kabbalah? He says, no. He was in yeshiva. He was in a very poor house. He had not enough clothing. So they used to have the coat room, the check room, whatever it was, so they would have clothing. People would leave their clothing there. Sometimes they left it there for donation. Sometimes a person would forget. They leave a coat, they leave a hat, and it becomes hefker, it becomes ownerless. Anybody can have it. He got his wardrobe because his parents were too poor to give him clothes. He got his wardrobe from the place. One day, he had no socks. He didn't have any socks. And he came to the room that was hefker, and he thought for sure, usually when he needed something, he would get socks. He looked there were no socks at all. He was unfortunately poor, and he had grown a little bit. He is a tall man. And unfortunately, the pants, the cuff that used to reach down to the shoe no longer reached to the shoe. It's like they were about a half a foot off from his shoe. That day he had no socks. He came inside to the yeshiva, and they saw that he had no socks. Immediately the administrator said, well, you're coming in without socks in yeshiva. It wasn't like today, it's already a style, but in those days, you needed to have a pair of socks. He said, I didn't have it. He says, you forgot to put your socks on? It's lucky you remembered to bring your head. He sent him home. He cried the whole day because he had no socks to bring in. He made a neder that day. Whenever I'm going to be able to make money, I'm going to make sure that there ain't no boy walking around that needs a pair of socks. Nora v'ayom. I took the money. Fascinating. A young woman came. She needed the money. She has to go out. She asked me a shaila. She's starting to go out to get married. She doesn't have a dress to wear. They dress up to go out on a date. She don't have a dress. So I said to her, happens to be, she just asked me a shaila. She didn't come in about the dress. I said to her, she said, what's her ishtadlus? Does she have to dress up? Or could she go? I said, I tell you what, there happens to be a store right now that wants very much to take care of somebody. And they offered for whoever would like to come, they have a special donation for dresses. You can go in there to get a dress to go out. Poor, you see her, poor. She went in. This store used to be in Flatbush. I don't know if it's still there. She went in. I called up the owner and I told him I had money and I told him he could give her. He gave her the dress. He told her she should take 2 more dresses. I didn't tell him 2 more. He took care of it. He took her name and number and said, please tell him, a husband and a wife, how things are going. One day, she's getting engaged. She calls him up. He said, I would like to have the schus to buy you your wedding gown. He says, schus is a kef. There are people that need, and he did. What a wonderful Ma'aseh Chesed. So, Nebuchadnezzar was told, all you have to do, no problem, just keep that house of Hachnosas Orchim going, keep the food and the drink. You can well afford it, Mr. Nebuchadnezzar. You got the money. You got the bank account. Give it to them. As long as you do, you will be safe. Nebuchadnezzar opens it up. However, 12 months later, he gets a little tired. He sees this Hachnosas Orchim going. It's costing money. People are eating. People are drinking. His calculator is going off in his brain how much money he's spending. He decides, Ad kan. I'm not doing this no more. I'm closing the business down. I will not continue it anymore. So he stopped. And there was a Baskol that came from Shemayim. The Baskol started to yell and to say to him, Nebuchadnezzar, what are you doing? We depended on you. We ate from you. We drank from you. We slept. We were able to have shelter. And now you're closing it down? How you talking? How you do that to people? Nebuchadnezzar didn't listen. He closed it down. The moment he closed it down, he became again a behemoth, and it was a number of years that he had suffered, eating the grass of the field, bending over like an animal, eating the grass of the field. His best friends were the animals in the field. Nebuchadnezzar, and now he is reduced to the lowest. After 7 years, it took him 7 years to learn his lesson. 7 years is a long time. I tell you, Rabbi Isai, 7 years is a long time. But sometimes people don't learn their lesson after 20 years. Sometimes people don't learn their lesson after 30 years, after 40 years. Maaseh Shaya, an individual that could have known better and did something for a long time in his life. I don't want to say. A person that knew better. He married somebody who is forbidden to him. Married someone who is forbidden to him. Why? A person can never judge another individual. But there is a certain level that a person has to be careful. Stayed married for a long time. The day came that this man was given a very big wake-up call. a wake-up call that nobody in this world should get. And he began to contemplate. Look what he did. Look what he lived his life. Look, he made the wrong decision, and look what he has to show for himself. In that moment, he decided that he's going to try to do tshuva. I will tell you, very few people could do what he did. He ended the marriage that was prohibited. And the day he ended the marriage, the woman went off, show you how much she loved him, took all of his money. She had all the money, took it off. The big thing was, why I think that it was hashgacha, was he didn't have charata after it. He had no regret. When he saw that she took his money after being married for all that time, then he thought to himself, what was I fooling myself all along? But a person could be fooled a long time that what they're doing is right. We have to be very honest. Mesilas Yesharim says zihirus. Always be careful and pay attention to the things in our own life that we should pay attention to. Always be careful. No, I got to check it. Am I doing the right thing? Am I eating the correct foods? Is the hashgacha good? On Shabbos, is this 100% okay or maybe 98% okay? The way that I'm dealing, when I returned something and I used it, a guy told me, he bought a suit, right? So it was a good suit, a coat rather. So he had a chassan they had to go to. So he wore the coat, it was cold, and it was his new coat. After he brought it home, he wore it. The next day he decided, I could take it back. I don't really need the coat. I could get a different one. I said, my dear friend, you wore it? He asked me a shaila. You wore the coat? Yeah. It was warm? Yes. It's a nice coat? Yes. I said, it's yours. Not so simple. Heter, no, I did this. I still saved the tags. The tags are on there. I could do it. They'll never know the difference. No. A person has to constantly make sure that what they're doing is the correct thing. Finally, Nebuchadnezzar, which there is hope for everybody. If there's hope for such a Rasha like Nebuchadnezzar, then there's hope for me. There's hope for everybody. We always take a look at it. The Jewish people, Mika Amcha, who are like Bnei Yisrael. Yid, I don't know if I could do tshuva. I think I did the worst thing. I'm not sure that Hashem would take me back. All the Yid was so modest. Look at the worst of the worst. Paro Melech Mitzrayim became the king in Nineveh, marched out from Yamsuf and went to Nineveh, became a king. Elazar ben Dardoi did every Aveir in the book. Who could be worse? He did tshuva. They called him Reb Elazar ben Dardoi. They called him rabbi. Not only did tshuva, they called him rabbi. Look through history of those that did tshuva. That were Yeravim ben Nevat. Hashem said, Yeravim, let's go. Ani v'ata ben Ishai. We're going to travel together. We're going to walk together in Gan Eden. Walk with Hashem. That's pretty good. Walking together with Hashem. So he asks, Mi Barosh, who's going to be in the head? Hashem had to tell him, Ben Ishai. Oh, no thanks, Hashem. I appreciate your opportunity. I really, don't get me wrong, I'm really thankful, but I'm not going to do it. How many turned Hashem down? Hashem said, I'll give you a path to tshuva. I'll give you a path that nobody has. Hashem said, even for Russia, even for an evil person. There is an unbelievable incident that happened. Unbelievable. Where a guy was going to be thrown out of the Klosenberger Yeshiva. Klosenberger Yeshiva. He did something wrong. Klosenberger Rebbe came to the office. He saw the guy walking, the bocher, came to the office. He says to the menal, to the principal, how can you throw out the bocher? He said, Rebbe, the bocher did something wrong. It was really wrong. So I said, the Klosenberger Rebbe said, but still he deserves a chance. Do you know how many chances I gave him? Do you know how many times he promised and went back on his promise? Klosenberger Rebbe started yelling. He says, so then you're telling me that there is no hope for the Klosenberger Rebbe. That's what you're telling me. There's no hope for me. He says, what do you mean? Do you know how many times I promised Hashem and I went back on it? And I didn't come through? So you're telling me that I'm finished, right? Manal says, Rebbe, Chas v'sholom, never would say it. He says, taking the bocher. He took in the bocher. I told the story over at a Hatzalah, meeting of the Hatzalah, dinner. A guy comes over to me afterwards, an older man, and he says, I'm ashamed to tell you, but I'm proud to tell you, I was the bocher that they threw out, that the Klosenberger Rebbe went to bat for me. It turned out pretty good. Individuals should know that there is always hope. We see from this a very interesting idea that for anybody there is hope. Even Nebuchadnezzar, who was restored, he was restored to the kingdom. The reason is because from that day on, he accepted Hashem as king. Not only did he accept Hashem as king, but he never referred to himself from that day on as Melech. Never would refer to himself as king anymore because of humility, knowing that Hashem was greater. Even somebody like Nebuchadnezzar was able to reach a level of tshuva. A very interesting thing. He realized, the Malbim says, that everything that is in the world is hashkacha. V'hashkacha lefi hadin v'mishpat. Everything happens according to law. Everything happens according to divine providence. What is major for us to understand is one idea, and that is with chesed, a person can literally turn their life into great simcha, can bring mazel, can bring bracha into their life. Everybody wants to know, what's the skula? What do I do? Do chesed. Do chesed. Any kind of chesed. Rambam lists the different things that a person can do to help out another yid. Anybody can help out another yid. You're out over here in the streets, in Main Street, you see somebody need help. They're carrying packages, you help them out. You see somebody looking down on the road, you say hello to them. You greet them with shalom. Ein gedolah mizu. There is nothing greater than that. There was an incident that happened, and I'm afraid we're quickly running out of time. There was in one of the cities in Europe before the Shoah, there was a couple, a wonderful couple, the Marcus couple, husband and wife. They lived according to Torah and mitzvahs. They had children, big nachas, big simcha. Everything was going good. All of a sudden, the Nazis rose to power. Yimach Shemon v'zichrom le'ol meyad. And when that happened, the family was thrown out of their home. Their belongings were stolen. Not only were their belongings stolen, the husband was deported to a concentration camp. The wife and the children were taken to a different camp. Shomu Shamayim. After years of Yisurim Noraim, years of great pain and affliction, the war ended. The husband and wife, Nes Nifla, found each other in a displaced camp. They couldn't believe it. In a DP camp, the husband found the wife. The wife didn't look like she used to. The husband didn't look like he used to. But they knew each other. Neshamas know each other. They reunited. However, one sad thing, the children didn't survive. They were bitter, they were down, they were beaten, they were broken. They decided they're going to continue on, and they went and moved to Eretz Yisrael, Eretz HaAvos. There, they got a little dirah in Yerushalayim, a little apartment, and they lived there. They knew nobody. They never had children. that just had one friend. There was one woman, a woman very religious by the name of Schultz. This woman took care of them, befriended them, very frum, would visit the couple, would help them, would give them cake, would bake for them a challah. The couple no longer did anything in mitzvahs and in Torah. They had abandoned Torah. They couldn't take what happened to them over the war. They lived a life completely free of any religion. Mrs. Schultz, though, took care of them. They held her to be like a sister, like a relative. She always had an encouraging word. She was a listening ear. They felt that at least somebody was there in the world. One day, Mr. Marcus, the husband, got sick. The early tests showed, lo kol kach pashut, it was not so simple. He was ill. They sent him to Hadassah Hospital in Ein Kerem. I had the great zechus to visit Eretz Yisrael 5 weeks ago, and I went to visit a patient in Ein Kerem, Hadassah Hospital. It was a trip from Yerushalayim to go. They sent a driver. It was a trip. In those days, it was a very, very big trip. It was a half a day's journey. So he went, and unfortunately, his condition went down very quickly. Now, the bitter truth was that he was terminally ill. Lo aleinu v'al kol beis Yisrael. A new chapter. They went through the Yisurim. They went through the Holocaust. They went through the beatings. They went through the torture. They lost their children. They reunited. A new chapter of Yisurim. A new chapter of bitter pain. Every day in the morning, Mrs. Marcus would take the long journey to go to be by her husband's bedside. And that's what she would do every day. At night, the one thing that she still had in her day, the one thing that she was able to do, was still to go to visit Mrs. Schultz. Mrs. Schultz had ready for her a hot tea, fresh cake, and they would talk every night. One day, Mrs. Marcus goes to visit her husband, and when she went, he was already out of the room. Who was it? The hospital staff. Where's my husband? Where'd he go? We needed to give up the room, so he's like in a holding place. What do you mean a holding place? He lost consciousness. And the doctors, well, better you speak to the doctors. I don't want to say anything. They waited for the doctors. The doctor said, listen, he's terminally ill. He's not conscious. It could take a day or two. It could take a week or two. But ultimately, the truth is, he's going to be free from his pain. He's not going to live. When she returned that night, when she went to visit Mrs. Schultz, she couldn't stop crying. Her eyes already swollen from the tears. What did she say? Mrs. Schultz said, what happened? She began to cry. Ein li yoter koach. I got no strength for this anymore. Ani lo mesugelet kvar lerot et bali sovel kach. I cannot watch my husband going through such pain. If you want to help me, she said, then titpalali, pray, bevakasha shehu yamut maher, that he should die quickly. Shasovel shelo yistayem maher, that all that he has to go through will quickly end. We are maminim, b'nei maminim. We are believers, the children of believers. Mrs. Schultz heard this. She said, don't speak like that, my dear friend. Hashem will help, bevadai ya'azor. Hashem will certainly help. You never be miyayish, you can never, ever give up. As Chizkiyo said, we learned it from our Avos, Afilu cherev chada munachas al tzavaro shel adam. Even the sharp sword is resting on the neck of a person. Al yimna atzma min arachamim. Al tityaesh. Never give up. Never ever give up. And in that moment, while she was still talking with Mrs. Marcus, her son came to visit, her grown son. Avram, come quickly. Avram came. Avram, he himself is not simple. He himself is a Rav, very well respected. She said, Avram, my son, I'm asking you a favor. I want you should go to the Ba'ala Rebbe, the Biala Rebbe Shlita. He lives on Rehov Yosef. I want you to go and mention the name of the husband of Mrs. Marcus. Mention the name for Refuah Shalema, that he should be healed. The Biala Rebbe, not simple. The son said, I don't got shaykhus to Hasidim. I'm not in that way. I'm Litai. I'm a Litvak. Going to Hasidim, going to Rebbe. It's his mama. He got to listen. So he went. When he went to the Biala Rebbe, who was known as the Chelkas Yoshua, the Chelkas Yoshua took a look at the kvittel. You write out on the paper, on the petek. He read it. Immediately, he asked a question without knowing anything, without knowing who he is, without knowing who the ill person is, the chola, nothing. He said, I would like to ask you a question. Since this Yid has been sick, has anybody gone to visit him? Did anyone do Bikur Cholim? Embarrassed, Rabbi Avram said, to the best of my knowledge, he has no relatives, he has no friends, nobody visited. In those days, it was a long way from Yerushalayim. A lot of people didn't travel. If so, said the Biala Rebbe, if that is so, I ask you to go tomorrow to Hadassah Hospital, Ein Kerem. Go in the morning, be Mevakar Choleh. You go and visit the sick. Lemaisa, I myself want to go. However, because of my current matzah, my situation, I can't go. But I want to go. I appoint you as my personal shliach. You go in my place. Go there. And when you go there, say l'shem yichud. Say, I'm going for the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. When you go there, you immediately, while you're going into the room, you be mispalel. And when you go and see him, you are ready to do the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. You go over to him and you tell him that you are my shliach. In Be'ezer Hashem Yisparach, the Biala Rebbe wishes him a refuah shalema. Rabbi Avram was confused. He says to the Rebbe, Bikur Cholim, there's not who to be mevaker. There's nobody to visit. He doesn't hear. He's not conscious. And he tells him another thing. The Chelkas Yoshua, the Biala Rebbe said, very interesting. Hamatzav shalachola. You're telling me about the condition of somebody. Zeh kivar lo kashor aleinu. That has nothing to do with us. You have no idea what his matzav is. Lanu, to us, is only the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. We have to do ours. We have to fulfill it. Go and do it. B'chol matzav shehu, no matter which matzav he is in. Rabbi Avram tried to tell the Biala Rebbe that it was a difficult journey and he's going to have to take off time from learning. The Chelkas Yeshua was not forgiving. He was not mevater. He said, you go tomorrow and be mekayim the mitzvah exactly like I told you. Rabbi Avram left the Rebbe. He left the Biala Rebbe. Next day he goes. A little bit before noon, he comes in. He sees Mr. Marcus lying there. He was shocked to see his face. He was very ill. He had to get himself back together. He was so upset. He said exactly what Biala Rebbe said, L'shem yichud, B'shem kol Yisrael hineni mekayim mitzvahs bikur chol. In the name of Hashem, I am coming to visit the ill, to get the mitzvah. He went to him, he leaned over, he said, I am a shaliach of the Biala Rebbe, the Chelkas Yoshua, and I wish you a refuah shalema. Mrs. Marcus, who was in the corner, he didn't realize, watching it. Someone to visit after all this time, her husband, says Amen. Maybe the first Amen that she said in decades. Rabbi Avram left. Nobody knows exactly what went on. Nobody to this day. He regained consciousness. He opened his eyes. He began to improve. The vitals came to life. To the amazement of his doctors, after a number of weeks, the man who they already prepared to go to, I don't want to say where, now was going to walk out from the hospital, from the base refuah, with his own 2 feet, unassisted by anybody else. From that day, he was zoche to chai shanim. 18 more years of life. There's a little bit more to the incident, I'll tell you. The Marcus is understood. It's a nes nifla. It's a miracle beyond. They realized what happened. Not only was it a refuah for the guf, but it was a refuah for the neshama, for the soul. They started to keep all the mitzvahs. They started to keep Shabbos, kashrus, be mekayim every mitzvah. It was unbelievable. They lived the rest of their days as Yereim Ushleimim, people who follow the letter and the spirit of the Torah. The mitzvah Bikur Cholim is something that the Talmud tells us could restore life, could be mechaya even a person that is ready, that they're preparing. Be'ez Hashem Yisparach, we should take all the mitzvahs that we can. We should continue in our own way to gomel chesed to everybody. We should all be benched with great bracha and hatzlacha and ruchnius and gashmius. Everybody should have everything they need. We should celebrate many, many simchas, and we should hear already the great simcha of the Pamei Mashiach Tzidkenu B'mheira V'yameinu. Amen.